Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the aftermath of the Ed Martin Jr. meltdown in the Senate and the defeat of his, or really the withdrawal of his nomination to be U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, the biggest office in DOJ, and now the substitution of one Jeanine Pirro, who is in some ways as much a piece of work as Ed Martin, and that is saying something. Okay, first, to very quickly, for Ed Martin Jr., I have in my Substack today the top 10 reasons why he really would have been a terrible U.S. attorney, and it could have been 20. But we won't pause over that, but rather now move to Jeanine Pirro. And you can almost think of the, Machiavellian folks in the Oval Office saying, "Oh, you don't like Martin? Well, wait till you see who we have for you." And who they have for us is Jeanine Pirro. Now, she doesn't have the same long list as Martin, but she is as or more sycophantic, dishonest, dedicated to Donald Trump, as was Martin, and in particular, as a Fox News on-air correspondent, she repeatedly broadcast the lie that the 2020 election was rigged and Trump had really won it. That statement, there's no excusing it as, oh, well, maybe she actually thought that. On the contrary, Fox was sued, and she figured largely in the suit, by Dominion Software, and that Fox was found to have lied about Dominion and about this point of whether Trump had won. She also was, Pirro, a named defendant in the Smartmatic lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit brought by the other company that Fox had falsely accused of somehow rigging the election. She's just, it's not, I was going to say her fingerprints are all over, but it's more than that. We have video where she's just a liar for Trump. And, there's a lot of things that Ed Martin did wrong, but the very worst is his confusion, to put it nicely, between loyalty to Donald Trump, including fair or foul, and claims that are bald lies or not. And that was really his confusion between being Trump's lawyer and being the lawyer for the United States, for the Constitution, for the rule of law, was really the core defect. And Jeanine Pirro has it to the same degree, if not more. She's just willing to go on TV and lie. We know that Fox knew at the time, everyone knew this was a lie. So what do you say about that on such an important, it's not a stray lie, it's not an immaterial lie, it's a lie on the most important public issue at the time, and it's all in favor of the man who currently is president, so we can expect the same sort of thing. Moreover, worse than this, as bad as it anyway, she's been saying since 2017 that Trump should use the apparatus of the Department of Justice to go after his enemies, and starting with Hillary Clinton, whom Pirro herself had an ill-fated short Senate election run against, and that lasted not very long and did not very well. But she's literally advocated publicly that he improperly, unlawfully, unconstitutionally harness the great power of the Department of Justice. Why? To harm his enemies. Really, about, for my money, I mean, I'm very DOJ centric, but for my money, the worst thing that can happen, and the biggest, clearest incident of authoritarian government is literally to warp the law and lie about it, and for just these petty personal reasons, which really is Trump's stock and trade. So that's who Pirro is. Trump has claimed her as being super qualified because whereas Martin had zero prosecutorial experience, Pirro was a DA 2 decades ago. She was an elected district attorney. And, what that qualifies her to do in the federal system is pretty dubious. You haven't had many U.S. attorneys who fit that description, have no federal court practice. But if they did, and they were of the right stripe to listen, to be trained, to hear what the wise graybeards in the department have to say and teach, it would be one thing. But she is the opposite. She conceptualizes her role as being, just as Martin did, to come in and just exploit the Department of Justice. And again, this is the largest single office there. It's not as if she's in the boondocks somewhere. Doing things like this will really have a sort of centrifugal force and impact within the department to go after Trump's enemies. We've seen already Bondi ordering up investigations of two persons who have done nothing wrong, but they're on Trump's shit list, for lack of a better term. And that's the kind of U.S. attorney that it looks like Jeanine Pirro will be. Now, how long will she be that kind of U.S. attorney? There's a really complicated interplay between two statutes, and it's not just but I think no one is exactly clear how it will operate, and it depends in the first instance about what Trump tries to do. Because normally you can designate someone as acting, as he did for Ed Martin, and they can be in office for 120 days, after which, if there's no one in the office, the court, the local district court, here the court where Boasberg is the chief judge, where all the judges have seen and presided over the January 6 trials that Trump wiped out in a stroke the first day in office, notwithstanding some of them actually saying, do not pardon these guys. They know who they're talking about. In other words, a court that I think you can assume is not well disposed to Trump's version of the truth, which is to say a false version. They would normally, if 120 days had passed, come in and appoint somebody. Here, however, Martin has served less than 120 days. So right now she's just interim U.S. attorney. That's all she is. Will she just piggyback on Martin's tenure and at 120 days step aside and it's for the court? Will Trump be able to claim an extra 120 days because she was installed as an interim before the first 120 days had run its course? And then how does that play out against the Federal Vacancies Reform Act? So there's two statutes in play. And the short answer for current purposes, whereas we're not sure, she may be there not very long, and the court will then come into play. They may try to have her there longer. If they try to have her there longer, it may be a legal battle. And just to really put a fine point on it, the first defendant who's convicted while she is in office, if they try to extend her over the 120 days, will just bring a lawsuit saying, there wasn't a valid U.S. attorney here. I am not a convict. And all the convictions during that time are put at risk. So, we'll see how the administration wants to play it and then how the courts respond. All we know is that for now, she's there as an interim, exercising the powers of the office, and by all accounts, likely to exercise them corruptly, not by doing justice without fear or favor, but rather doing injustice, to keep up with the metaphor, with total favor toward the President of the United States rather than the Constitution of the United States. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.